Thanks to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video. You know, it's kind of hard to talk about the iPhone because honestly, there's not that much different. I mean, it's an iPhone, you know what to expect with it. And because that software is the same pretty much across the board and basically across generations as well, you know, what really differentiates these is the hardware. And it really takes a while to get to know it and see how it actually performs. Now this year I went with the Pro version, which is a new SKU. And I remember when it came out, there was so much, talk about why is there a Pro version? This phone doesn't do enough new things to justify having that Pro name. But there's a few things that I enjoy about the iPhone 11 Pro that I think, at least for me or someone like me, make it worth it. This is hopefully the last generation of this design that we see. It's not that it's bad, it's just old. I went with the iPhone 11 Pro instead of the Pro Max, and that's the same basic shape we've had since the iPhone 10 3 years ago. But that age does come with benefits. This is the best version of this design, which of course you would hope, since they can, perfect it year over year. Small things that I've noticed over these past few months. The back glass is great. That frosted finish both feels good, doesn't have fingerprints, and I haven't had it scratch at all. Now, of course, it is possible to scratch the back, but even though I have basically not used a case, the back glass looks perfect. And that good build quality kind of goes to the rest of the phone too. That stainless steel band, although mine is a little scratched, it's definitely very sturdy and strong. I'm not worried about it breaking or anything. The front glass, it scratches. It'd be nice if it didn't. But again, I'm not using this phone with a case, and I'm never worried that it's gonna break or that it's gonna scratch extra hard, which, is a nice thing to have when it's your daily phone. I've gotten used to the smaller size of the 11 Pro, and I think this is the best size overall. It's big enough. You have a, technically big screen, but in the hand, it doesn't feel huge, or especially like in your pocket. When I carry around the 11 Pro Max, it feels big, you can tell. And that's one of the reasons why I switched back to the smaller version this year. I'm not regretting it, and I'm gonna miss that with the next generation. I think this is, kind of the sweet spot. One reason why you would get the Pro over the regular 11 is, of course, the screen. And this is something that, day to day really doesn't matter, but it's something that I personally care about. I like having that higher resolution, that OLED. I like having those deep blacks, the color representation. Like, I like having this higher quality screen. And even after these months, I still think it's one of the best panels out there. I really care about color accuracy, and it's one of the most accurate panels out there. So yeah, it doesn't have things like 90 or 120 hertz, but when I'm, for instance, making these videos or doing photography, I know that when I'm on my desktop computer that has a calibrated screen and I bring it over to my phone, it's gonna look very similar because it's a really high quality display. And I think if that's something that matters to you, even all these months later, that's still something I notice. I really enjoy the screen here. Another thing I think Apple really just nailed with the 11 Pro is battery life. Again, it's the smaller phone, but I can still easily get throughout a day. Now, I've heard some people complain that over time they've had worse and worse battery life. I haven't really noticed that too much, but here's how I can kind of, explain my battery life experience. I have the Apple battery case, and for last year's phone, the iPhone XS, I also had the battery case, but I actually chose to keep it on a lot of the time on the XS because the battery life, it was good, but it wasn't that great, and the battery case definitely gave a noticeable difference. With the 11 Pro, I also have that battery case, but I really only use it when I'm going on trips or going somewhere I know I'm going to be using a lot of battery life. I don't need it for my day-to-day because the battery life is that much better. And this is another area that I hope Apple really, continues. They had always in the past, been mocked for creating thinner and thinner phones, but the 11 Pro is a chunky device, but in a good way because you're getting stuff for that size. That battery life is well worth it. So I hope that with the next iteration with the iPhone 12, they continue that trend, even though we're expecting some features like a ProMotion display and possibly even a smaller battery size. Like, I hope they can figure out a way to continue that battery life. It's interesting because when you first get a phone, of course, you look at all the advertised features, but when, that all fades away and you actually start using a phone and you just get used to it, you start to notice the things that actually matter to you. And for me, those are the big ones. The hardware is so important because across the line, everything just gets kind of stale, much like all the coffee at your grocery store that you're used to. You like that one? If you're struggling to find the perfect coffee in your grocery store, or you just want to explore a little bit more, try something new, Trade can help you discover new coffee from the nation's top roasters. They match you to your own personal selection of coffee, and it gets delivered right to your door. So it's pretty simple. All you have to do is you go online, take the quiz, and answer a few questions about what kind of coffee you like, and it will curate and match the coffee to you. Then it gets delivered right to your door, and you can choose how often or frequent you want those deliveries. Then after you try it, you rate how you liked it, and they will continue to match you with even better and better coffee. So if this is something you'd like to try, if you check the link down in the description, Trade is giving 30% off for anyone who signs up for your first bag of coffee, and there's also free shipping included. So skip the lines at the grocery store, try something new, and try Trade. Camera is the reason why I got the 11 Pro over the regular 11. I like having all the options available, and those 3 cameras are really useful. The camera is, really like everything else in life, it really just depends on what kind of photos you like. If you want really high processed images that are, really contrasty and saturated, well, the iPhone doesn't really give you that. For me, I like the more flat, kind of neutral images that are more realistic to life. If I want to go in later and adjust them to make them more poppy and more stylized, then I can do that. But I don't want the camera doing that for me. And that's why I've always liked the iPhone camera opposed to other systems. And that's really no different with the 11 Pro so far. Now, interestingly, I always used to think telephoto was better than ultra wide, and I still definitely think it has its place. I'm glad I have it, which again is the reason why I went for 11 Pro, but I actually find myself using the ultra wide much more than the telephoto, which surprised me. I was not expecting that. But I do think the ultra wide is the weakest point here. It is definitely and noticeably a worse camera than the other two. It still produces great images, but if you start to kind of pixel peep and get in there, you notice that it's lacking a little bit. But for me, the flexibility makes it worth it. I just wish, that's something that they can improve on. For the main camera though, I still think it's the best camera out there. And the addition of deep fusion is one of those things that you never really notice when you're actually shooting, but it just gives you better images. But now that you just, never think about it, what really is important is that the images that come off this phone look great. That in combination with the already really good Smart HDR, I think give an overall very strong photography package. And that again transfers over to the video side. Now, like I said, the photography side, it's kind of personal preference what you like, but I don't think there's any way around it. The iPhone does still take the best video on any phone. And why that's important to me is that if there's ever something that pops up, I know that I can just, use my phone and record it, and I can use it for really anything. If I needed a shot for one of these videos, for instance, I could do that with my phone and it would fit in just fine. Stabilization is great. The audio is great. Video on the iPhone is still top notch. I do wish I can get a little bit more control out of it without having to use a third-party app, but that's more of a personal thing. I think what's great about it is for the friends and family who don't really care, they pick up the iPhone and they're gonna get the best video that you can get. And for preserving memories and sharing with friends and family, I think that's what's really important. That's why I personally care so much about the camera system, because these memories aren't things you're going to be able to recreate. So I want to have the best quality at the time. So for me, the camera is solid. I love it. And I hope Apple just improves on that. Obviously there's a lot with each of these phones, but for me, it's really kind of solidified what I really care about and what I want in the next version for the iPhone 12. We've heard a bunch of rumors of what we're going to see, and now that I've used this phone so much, I know what I actually want from those rumors. I think the squared off design is going to be killer, similar to what we have with the iPad Pro or what we had with the iPhone 5 or the iPhone 4. That's one of my favorite design languages. I love the squared off feel. So having that in an iPhone again is something I'm very much looking forward to, especially now that we've had this current design for the iPhone 11 Pro for so long. And I'm also excited to see how Apple does a ProMotion display. Like I said, battery life is important to me, so if they can pull it off without affecting it too much and still maintain the great quality that we have now, I'm all for that. I've seen it and used it on plenty of other phones like Samsung or the Pixel. I know it can look great, but I want it with Apple's color accuracy and color calibration. So if they can do that without affecting battery life, again, all for that. And I'm very excited to see the camera updates. I'm most likely going to get the Pro version again, and with that rumored LiDAR feature to get better portrait mode, and maybe even other features that we haven't even thought of, that's something that I, again, personally care about. That in combination with iOS 14, I think is really shaping up to be an excellent phone. After each iteration we've seen of this design, you'd expect this one to be the perfect version, and it pretty much is. And now that it's been around for so long, it's exciting to see what's going to come next. I mean, this is an iPhone. You know what an iPhone brings. So really what differentiates each thing is that hardware. The software is always going to be the same. So it's exciting to see what Apple is going to do next with the iPhone 12. So far, I'm still happy with this phone. I'm glad the Pro version exists, and it'll be interesting to see what the next few months bring. And remember, Trade is giving anyone who clicks the link down below 30% off your first bag of coffee. So check it out. And again, thanks to them for sponsoring.